What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another About Teams video. And in today's NFL segment, we're going to be continuing what we've done the last 2 days. If you haven't already, make sure to check those videos out of every, one thing or a couple things that every AFC team needs to make the playoffs. It was very fun, some different, some similar ideas we both had for those. And today, we're going to continue that with two divisions in the NFC, the NFC East and the NFC North. A lot of very intriguing teams in this division. For me, though, Nick, I have to say it's only fair to start with my Super Bowl pick from last year, the Dallas Cowboys. Got bounced in the wild card. The team's the definition of 12 wins every year. Yeah, make that face. Team's the definition of a playoff team. So they do that. We can kind of question what they do in the playoffs.
The Dodgers. They're like the Dodgers of football.
Big money, never make it out of the first, second round. Nick, what for you do the Cowboys need to do to make the playoffs this year?
Yeah, so you just said it, perfectly. I mean, they're a team that usually plays good enough to get to the playoffs every year. But my big key for them this year, because I think there's going to be a lot more competition, in the NFC. NFC North is stacked, but for the Cowboys, I think Dak needs to step up, not just in general, but in the big games where sometimes he might decline and throw like 3 picks against, a team like the 49ers or the Eagles. And last year, I believe he played well against the Eagles, and I think he might have went 1-1.
He did have that game against the Bills, though, where they lost like 31-10. That was kind of ugly.
Exactly. Games like that where it's like, a big-time game, kind of gets you ready for that playoff feel game. He needs to show up because he really hasn't showed. I mean, we saw what they did against the Packers. Like, the Packers that was a slaughter. That was a slaughter at home.
Don't worry, though. The Cowboys got their garbage time touchdowns to 2 points. So it's all good in Dallas. I agree with those points. For me, I'm going to go a different route here. They got the roster. I'm going to go, in a way, if this makes sense, in order for the Cowboys just to make the playoffs. We can talk about deep postseason run later. For me, they just got to continue to buy in to what they believe in and Dak's leadership, because there's a lot of question marks with this Cowboys team. They made no off-season moves. Jerry Jones was very, has had some very open opinions about Dak Prescott, that contract. For me, though, for Dallas, how many times it's been like the last 4 or 5 years where you're just climbing up this mountain of winning 12 games and getting bounced every single year in the wild card. So can you continue to – because they have the roster. I know the competition's better. They have a roster to at least be a wild card team. Like, they won 12 games last year. But if they need to, buy into each other and just believe that they can, win these games. Because at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, oh, here we go again, running it back. Dak's making $50 million. We didn't get any better. Woe is me. And now they're, 8-win team because, they just, weren't the same. Dak regressed from his stats last year. And it's just got toxic very quickly. Mike McCarthy's out the door. It looks like Dallas could be, for me, if they buy into Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott, they'll be just fine. They believe they can compete. They'll win these games. But at some point, there comes that mental battle of, okay, here we go again. Whole nother season. Let's win 12 games, grind, and just lose in the first round because we don't have the QB or the coach to bring us over that hump. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's more of a mental thing for Dallas if they want to make the playoffs. They got to buy into what they believe if they really believe that they are a playoff and Super Bowl caliber team.
Yeah. You're right. They definitely have the talent. I mean, Micah Parsons, when he's healthy, is playing like a top 3 defensive player. So you're definitely right on that.
It's a mental game for me with Dallas. Next team, very interesting team. 2022 NFC champion. Looked like they were well on their way to another Super Bowl before losing. It was like 6 out of their last 7 and getting destroyed in the wild card. The Philadelphia Eagles. Nick, you start this one.
Okay. I said I think they need to return to their 2022 ways, and more so Jalen Hurts needs to bounce back. He kind of was going uphill slowly last year and then just fell off. back half of the year. He was looking worse every game. He looked awful in that playoff game. I don't know if it was an injury thing, a coaching thing, but maybe they got to mix it up with how they scheme things. I keep forgetting the coach's name. He's the head coach for the Colts. I always forget his name. Shane Steichen? Yeah, he was such, we all saw how big of a loss he was last year. So I think they need to figure out how to implement some of the stuff he brought to the table back, because that's when Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate. I don't know if that tush push is going to be getting used now that Kelsey's gone.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Fantasy owners will keep an eye out on that.
But yeah, my big key for a ton of teams is just quarterback play. But we've seen Jalen Hurts do it before, so we know he's capable of doing it. He has the weapons for sure with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They lost, DeAndre Swift, but that's not the end of the world with that type of run game in their O-line. But I think Jalen Hurts needs to have put the team on my back type of mentality and just carry them there.
Yeah, I agree, obviously, with Jalen Hurts. If I were to go in another direction, I would look at that defense and specifically the cornerback position. How do those rookies look? Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they addressed the corner immediately, and rightfully so. James Bradbury was awful last year. Darius Slay took a step back. So it'll be interesting to see, because part of the reason why is any team was throwing on them at will the second half of the year. So they obviously got younger. They want to get quicker, but that's a huge position in this league with all the wide receiver talent in the world. Probably the most we've seen in the NFL ever. I'm very interested to see what happens. How do those rookies look? Because that'll be a big part of if the Eagles' defense is good or not, because we know that front seven gets pressure. Obviously, they built that whole front seven up, but it'll be interesting to see now with these new corners, can they hold up in the passing game? That's all I'll be looking at. With that being said,
Giants or Commanders next. These are kind of two.
I mean, for me, it's pretty obvious. Like for the Commanders, if they want to make the playoffs, Jane Daniels has to take the league by storm because the roster simply isn't good enough. But if Jane Daniels can elevate everyone around him, make Terry McLaurin like a 1,500-yard receiver, just spread the ball, use his rushing ability, get like 10-plus rushing touchdowns, just put up huge numbers in surprise. Commanders win 9-10 games. That's the only way I could see them getting into the playoffs, personally.
Yeah, I said that too. I said he's got to have a rookie of the year run, and also
like a CJ Stroud type of year. Maybe even better with this roster.
The O-line also has to protect him. We saw them kind of let Sam Howell die in the backfield last year. So Jaden Daniels isn't the biggest dude. He's more of a running, playmaking type of guy. So if he's getting hit hard by these humongous NFL defensive linemen, he's going to go down quick. So they got to keep him upright.
Yeah, those will be some of the keys, obviously, for them. Then the next last team, Giants. For me, Giants were a wild card team, 2022. But boy, last year was a disaster. And for me, if they want to make the playoffs, they obviously lost Saquon. Defense is going to have to be top 5. And the offense, it's going to have to be like the 2022 Giants offense, where Daniel Jones only had like 15 passing touchdowns, but he just had a mix of running, passing, and just taking care of the football and letting everything else around him, let the defense do its thing. Just don't make any stupid mistakes. Win those one-score games, because the roster isn't good enough to win 38-10. So, just take care of the football, play smart. Malik Neighbors has a great rookie season. Those are just some of the things I'm highlighting.
Mm-hmm. I'm on more the defensive side of the ball. I said defense has the ball out and then just have timely offense. This is the case for a lot of, the lower tier offenses like the Patriots or the Jets last year. Just score for your defense. You don't need to score 35 points a game and blow everybody out. Just score for your defense so that they have a lead that they can protect. Yeah,
no, I agree 100%. Defense has got to be like top 10, maybe top 5 is a stretch, but they were like top 10 in 2022 when they made the playoffs. Be around there, be aggressive. Brian Burns, a new addition, probably has had obviously a really good year in that trade that they made with Carolina. Another awful Carolina trade. They could have gotten him for 2 first-round picks last year, but that's neither here nor there. That's just David Tepper being David Tepper. Now, NFC East. that is done. Now we move into NFC North. Only fair. Gotta give respect to the reigning NFC North champion, the Detroit Lions. For me, for them to just make the playoffs, obviously you could say stay healthy. For me, it's just Dan Campbell doesn't mess them up. And I think Dan Campbell's a great head coach, but we've seen these times where, he gets kind of, he goes very aggressive, arguably lost in the NFC Championship game. But, in the regular season, Detroit could, stumble out of the gate quickly, like, 0 or 1-2 or something. And it's like, oh crap, like we need to start winning all these games down. And they start panicking, getting very overly aggressive, and ends up costing them more games. That's what I look for. Just like smart coach, continue to just do smart coaching, trust your gut, be aggressive when you need to, but don't overdo it, because sometimes that can cost you games, and it didn't really bite them last year, arguably up until the biggest game of the season. But that's kind of one thing I'm looking for if I'm the Detroit Lions, because obviously health is one, because if they're healthy and, they'll obviously make the playoffs.
I like that take. That's a good point. I also thought he was way too aggressive in the NFC Championship in a game they really had in hand.
Yeah, they had in the bag.
But I said that Goff needs to play up to the contract he just signed. I think he's getting like $53 million a year now or something with that new extension. So for them just to get back, because they have such a talented roster, they retained all their key pieces. So for them to get back, he just needs to play. If he just plays the way he played last year, maybe a little better.
Yeah.
You're making $50 million a year. You got to be, up
there. Yeah. I mean, he's got to, for me, I know what Jared Goff is. That contract isn't going to make him really, I don't think, any better. He is what he is. He's really good. I don't know if you want to put him in the game manager above, but you're right. He has to live up to that contract. Now that he gets paid, he's got to still perform at the high level. But like at his like age 28, 29, I don't see like how much better he can get. Maybe just a little bit smarter decision-making wise, but like, everything else, arm strength, athleticism, that's already at its peak. So yeah, just probably everyone take care of the football is what my key thing is.
Yeah. What I mostly mean by play up to the contract is, quarterbacks make their big money when they win you games, either late in the game or in the playoffs. So he showed us in the playoffs he can win them games. So just if it comes down to crunch time, late in the season, it's a big game, go out there and win it for your team. Last drive, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady type drive where maybe the 1 or 2 seeds on the line, you're going against a big opponent, primetime game. Go show us why you made your money.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's like for Jared Goff, I don't care if you light up the New Orleans Saints for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns on a 1:00 game. It's like the old Kirk Cousins treatment. Let's see what you do in prime time when it matters. And he's proven last year he can win it. Let's stick to that if the game gets close. And they're also Detroit playing a first place schedule now, not the second. I believe it was the second place schedule last year, but now they're playing the best teams in every division. So we'll see how they do with that. Next team, Green Bay. For me, it's pretty simple. Jordan Love continues to take that next step, and they should be just fine. We saw the second half of last year, him come on in the playoffs against the Cowboys was amazing. Was pretty good against San Francisco up until like basically the last drive of the game where he had kind of forced one across his body. But it was basically his rookie year. So for me, the roster is still very young. Pretty much not even Jordan Love. The whole team just continues to develop those receivers that are still entering their second or third year. Continue to take that next step with Jordan Love in their development program.
Yeah. I said, I was kind of close to you. I said Jordan Love stays hot and just protect him. Make sure he doesn't go down. We've seen it too many times where an O-line will stunt the development of a quarterback who will have like maybe a good year or two, but the O-line just isn't up to par. So he's getting hit, getting hurt, making bad reads because of it, and just overall hurting his development. So he'll continue to stay hot as long as he's getting protected and just use all those weapons around him that we talked about.
Fair enough. Next team, a very intriguing team. Some teams have this team winning 10-plus games, the Chicago Bears. For me, it all comes – I mean, I don't like just, simply saying quarterback. But for me, this roster, the defense, the way it ended last year, one of the best in the league. the offense, adding a Dunze, trading for Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, now signing DeAndre Swift. I'm looking at the offensive line and Caleb Williams. How do they perform? Because obviously, if they want to make the playoffs, Caleb is going to have to live up to that first overall pick height. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, one of the most controversial people, just like off the field alone, just kind of some of his actions. I like him though as a good prospect. I think he'll be just fine. And this is like an easy system. I'm hoping the OC doesn't put too much on his plate at first because he really doesn't need to. You have 3 stud wide receivers to you don't need to get all fancy even at the beginning. Just run some play action. You'll be just fine.
Yep. I know that's like the safe route to go when it comes to the Bears. Just this team is pretty much built for Caleb. But I went on the other side of the ball. Actually, I said that the Bears defense needs to take the pressure off of Caleb. We saw how they were at the end of the year last year. And if they're, giving up, if they start the year hot and are giving up 15 points a game for the first 8 weeks and really just letting Caleb work, ease himself into the offense, that's going to be huge for them. But if they're forcing him to, throw the ball 40 times each week to win the game, because, Bears fans are going to want to see him throw the ball. They didn't wait all these years just for him to hand off the ball or throw for a game.
True.
So just take the pressure off of Caleb. Make sure it's okay for him to make mistakes because he's gonna. The great ones, like Peyton Manning has the interceptions record as a rookie. So it takes time for them to develop no matter how good of a prospect they are. So just take the pressure off of him and don't make him score 35 points a week to win you games.
Yeah, fair enough. Last team, my dogs, Minnesota Vikings. For me, pretty obvious. I'm going on the assumption Sam Darnold starts the year. Some people may do JJ, but I think JJ sits at least the beginning of this year and kind of, gets grown into the system. No need to rush right now. The Vikings aren't competing for a Super Bowl this year. But for me, if the Vikings want to make the playoffs, Sam Darnold is last year's Baker Mayfield. Just kind of, top pick that never really lived up to the hype, but now in probably the best system to succeed. Maybe even, has better weapons than Tampa Bay did. You got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. At some point, I know he'll probably be injured for at least the first month recovering from that ACL, but eventually him. And that defense that was top 15 last year with the free agent signings, I expect to be borderline top 10, around top 12. So a scrappy defense, and just he takes care of the ball and, will put up some yards, points. That's my prediction. Sam Darnold just has a break. Not even the best QB in the league, but has a breakout year and gets paid. But I honestly don't even think that will be from the Vikings if that were to happen, because the Vikings obviously got JJ. But, Sam Darnold makes a name for himself. And that'd be, if he does that, goes out, leads us to 9 wins, makes the wild card and gets paid somewhere else, that's awesome. Happy for him. Yeah, that's my prediction, though, if the Vikings want to make the playoffs, because I assume the defense will continue to be good and the weapons are already amazing. So,
yeah, I must be picking up on your, Vikings mindset. I said something really similar. I said Arnold has to play. I think he has to play all year. I don't think if you go from one quarterback to another, you're going to make the playoffs, because if you do that, something went wrong. But I think Darnold plays all year and just gets the ball to Jefferson, no matter how hard it is. Get the ball to Jefferson. You know how good he is when he gets the ball. He's going to get open for you. So just don't be stupid and, overthrow him, underthrow him, throw all these picks, throw him when he's not open.
He's got some legs he can rush, so use that rushing when you need to. You've got Aaron Jones back there now. He's he can do his thing. Especially, it seems like towards every year at the end of the year, he heats up in those November, December months into the playoffs. So as a Vikings fan, it was painful to see every time him in a December pivotal Monday night game go for 130. But glad he's on our team now. Great minds think alike on that one. But so with that being said, that wraps up, our NFL, NFC East and NFC North division, kind of what 1 or 2 things every team needs for them to make the playoffs this year. Obviously, some are easier than others, as we figured out doing this exercise. But, it's been fun, and that means we only got 2 more divisions left that we'll touch on either tomorrow or next week's podcast. Make sure if you haven't already to look at our AFC edition ones for every division team, what they need to do to make the playoffs. But with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.